In this presentation, we'll introduce you to the participant-oriented evaluation approach. While it includes different models, a commonality is that stakeholders are directly involved in conducting the evaluation. According to Booty, in the past, this approach was not widely emphasized, partly because of concerns about evaluator objectivity. In recent decades, successful outcomes have come from directly involving participants in evaluation. What is participant-oriented evaluation? According to King, participatory evaluation involves program staff or participants actively in decision-making and other activities related to the planning and implementation of evaluation studies. This approach introduces the idea that the inclusion of participants may be useful and important. King identifies 4 characteristics of participatory approaches. Stakeholders clarify needs, values, definitions, and questions. Stakeholders take ownership to design evaluations, gather and analyze data, and interpret results. A professional evaluator provides technical assistance. And lastly, participants' skills and understandings of evaluations are likely to increase. Robert Stake's Countenance of Educational Evaluation model founded the development of participant-oriented evaluation. This model aims to capture the complexity of educational innovation and change by comparing intended and observed outcomes at varying levels of operation. Evaluation provided an in-depth description of the program being evaluated used to make judgment of its merit or worth. Building on Stake's work, Guba and Lincoln's 4th-generation evaluation continued the shift towards qualitative and naturalistic methods of evaluation. Through defining the role of evaluation as responses to audiences' requirements for information, the key dynamic of this approach is negotiation. It is based upon relativism, a unity between knower and known, and a subjective epistemology. Evolved from these earlier approaches, Patton's contemporary developmental evaluation balances control between evaluator and stakeholders. The evaluator plays a facilitative role to interpret findings and discuss options with intensely involved stakeholders. The developmental evaluation approach embraces qualitative methods by targeting group needs, feedback, and reflection through capturing and communicating participant stories. Stufflebeam's context, input, process, and product model is an evaluation approach systematically aimed to improve educational decision-making. This 4-part model is a framework for guiding evaluations of programs, projects, personnel, products, institutions, and evaluation systems. With the evaluator in a more expansive role, the model centers on decision-making and clarifying program objectives. How participant-oriented evaluation should be done and towards what ends varies greatly. Cousins, Donahue, and Bloom specified 3 key dimensions that vary depending on the ultimate goal of the evaluation, including which stakeholders are selected, who controls technical decision-making, and the depth of participation of the stakeholders. In practice, diverse evaluations result from the unique mix of these 3 dimensions. Cousins and Whitmore identified 2 major types of participatory evaluations distinguished by their goals and functions. Practical participatory evaluation involves stakeholders as a way to increase evaluation's relevance, stakeholder ownership, and the use of evaluation. Transformative participatory evaluation began in developing countries and focuses on promoting social change by empowering stakeholders to be in control of knowledge. Cousins and Earle first presented the idea of practical participatory evaluation. The evaluator only works with key stakeholders who have the power to make decisions about the program. The expert evaluator trains and supervises stakeholders as they evaluate a project to help them develop technical and research skills. The ultimate goal is to increase the use of and capacity for evaluation within an organization. Empowerment evaluation is a form of transformative evaluation introduced by Fetterman with a focus of helping people help themselves. Key stakeholders have full decision-making power with the evaluator in the role of a coach or facilitator. The goal is for stakeholders to become self-sufficient. Evaluation is used formatively as a way for stakeholders to continually improve existing programs or plan new programs to meet their goals. Strengths of participant-oriented evaluation include the following. It increases understanding. Evaluators are directly involved in the programs, thereby increasing their understanding of goals and outcomes without making assumptions. It also promotes co-construction of knowledge. Communication increases knowledge of both evaluators and participants. Organizational learning increases because participants learn how to apply the gathered data and results for future planning. Pluralism is valued. As Williams states, indeed, over time, evaluation has become increasingly attentive to the needs and interests of wider and more diverse groups of people associated with the things being evaluated. It also empowers stakeholders. By looking at the perspectives of locals, their views prevail over theories, and participants may be involved in decision-making. It can improve objectivity and validity. Stake indicates that analyzing contextual data promotes greater objectivity. Fitzpatrick, Sanders, and Worthen argue that involving stakeholders can result in more valid data. It offers flexibility because the evaluator adapts approaches according to knowledge construction. And it can bring about social change, especially when evaluators advocate for participants in their political goals. Limitations include the following. Stakeholders may resist the recommendations from the evaluator if they value the status quo for personal reasons. Potential for bias is high with stakeholders directly involved in the evaluation. Stakeholders may be tempted to prove the effectiveness of their program for funding purposes. The validity of outcomes is questionable when participants are new to the research process. The approach is also time-consuming and costly. There is added manageability because conflicts may arise with so many participants involved. Feasibility is another issue. In democratic evaluation, an evaluator includes views of all valid stakeholders, but reaching out to disadvantaged stakeholders may be challenging. Also, not all evaluators are trained to facilitate decision-making involving many participants with different views. How can the participant-oriented evaluation approach be used in educational settings? Here are a few examples, beginning with experiential learning. The goal setting involved in empowerment evaluation fits in with the implementation of experiential learning. Both empowerment evaluation and experiential learning encourage staff and student participants to learn by doing. Another example of using participant-oriented evaluation is for changes in the learning system. When innovations are being introduced and systems and environments are in the early stages of change, developmental evaluation may be useful. Developmental evaluation allows participants to use and adapt strategies while the changes are being implemented. A final example of using participant-oriented evaluation is during the introduction of new technologies. It can be used before and during the introduction of new technologies into a learning system. Attitudes towards technology and needed supports for the learning and the use of new technologies can be ascertained through this type of evaluation. Participants can assist in evaluating the worth and use of the new technologies. In conclusion, we all live in an interconnected society in which members are expected to be involved and take an active role in government, education, healthcare, and the environment. Participant-oriented evaluation builds upon this reality to actively involve stakeholders in the decision-making process.